the person of peace is a concept that relates to the world beyond our ongoing network of relationships. So this is the second lens that we want to equip everyone to look through, to see, to keep in mind all people of every people group, tribe, tongue, and nation. And you use different filters. There are different tactics, different approaches for dealing with this part of the world. In this part of the world, the person of peace is a key concept. The term person of peace or man of peace or house of peace comes from Matthew chapter 10 and Luke chapter 10. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus is giving instructions to his 12 disciples as they're getting ready to go out and do ministry. In Luke chapter 10, he's giving instruction to the 72 before they go out and do ministry. And there are a lot of parallels in the two passages. There are also some differences, but we won't worry about those right now. But one of the things that's the same in both of these settings is Jesus is instructing his followers to go look for these households of peace. And they are to locate these by whoever shows them hospitality. So he tells them to go out without resources, to, in a sense, go out needy. And whoever meets their needs, whoever will provide for them, whoever will take them into their homes, they are to proceed on the assumption that these are households of peace, persons of peace. And then they are to stay in that house, not move from house to house, eat what's set before them, and in a sense minister the kingdom. And if it does prove to be a household of peace, then Jesus says your peace will, remain on it because you're to bless that house. And this person of peace is, in a sense, a stackpole. It's a cornerstone for establishing a new spiritual community, a new church in this place. His disciples were not going to be living in these places. They weren't going to be going there regularly. They were going out to seek to establish the kingdom in these villages where Jesus was about to come. And these households of peace were the cornerstone of what God wanted to build in that place. So how do we find these houses of peace or these persons of peace? One thing is that we can do something very similar to what Jesus commanded his disciples to do. Sometimes I'll go to a place and I'll ask them, is there anyone in this place that is a good person who has the welfare of others as their primary concern? They're not always selfish. They're not always seeking their own gain, their own benefit, but they're seeking to bless others. And if the same name comes up 2 or 3 times, I'll seek to find that person and get to meet them. Once in a while, you'll be in a place. I'll ask this, and people will say, "What have you been smoking?" Look around you. Do you think there's anybody here like that? There's nobody here like that. Well, in that case, maybe rather than looking for a person of peace, I might look for a Gadarene demoniac or a Samaritan woman at the well. Somebody who's just so bad that when they turn to Christ, it'll draw others. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who are thoughtful for others and have the welfare of others in their hearts. And another way that I can find these people sometimes is that I'll start a spiritual conversation with someone out prayer walking or something like that. And if they demonstrate some openness spiritually, I'll ask them, would you be willing to gather some friends and family together and we could talk about this further? And if they're willing to do that, that's a good sign that they may be a person of peace. They're willing not only to find something good for themselves, but think of others, their friends and family, that they would want to share this with. We talked about the greatest blessing. So sometimes if I lead someone to faith, I'll go through that whole greatest blessing process. And if they are faithful in sharing with others what they have just, come to believe, then I will proceed on the assumption that they are likely a person of peace. Now, this seems in some senses counterintuitive to us. Especially in the West, we have this very egalitarian view, and we have this attitude like, oh, I want to go to every door, make sure every person has a chance to hear the gospel. But if you think about it, Jesus' way actually makes a lot more sense if this is not our community that we're ministering in. Because if everybody hears the gospel and some believe, but then we have to leave, how are they going to be brought to maturity? How will they be coached in a way that they will in turn multiply other disciples? But if we invest deeply into the few, then we can equip them to the point where they can be the testimony. They can spread the gospel. They can take responsibility for their community. And so our time is actually better invested because we're aiming for multiplication. We're aiming for disciples, not converts. So this idea of finding this person of peace is critical to multiplying disciples, especially among every people, tribe, tongue, and nation, those beyond my normal network of relationships.